Hello, and thank you for tuning in to this week's Principal Message. I'm standing here right outside our International Baccalaureate office on the day of our site visit. So, happening right now as we speak, two members from the International Baccalaureate World Office are at Purcell Marion, and we're going through our very final site visit. This is the site visit that leads to authorization, and I can tell you the buzz around campus today from the adults, from the students, from me is we are excited, we are ready, and I look forward to the results of being authorized. Now, with respect to International Baccalaureate, international mindedness is a key component to what it is that we do at Purcell Marion. And in this hallway behind me, you've probably already noticed these flags. There are 28 of them hanging in this hallway, and they represent the countries from which our students were born, our staff was born, or the parents of our students. So when we talk about international mindedness, when we talk about International Baccalaureate, Purcell Marion, it's an international school already, and we celebrate all the gifts and the uniquenesses that each and every one of our students and their families bring to this great school. So, like I said, we are excited about today. I'll report back to you as soon as I can on how the site visit goes. I'm anticipating everything to go quite well. Mr. Herring actually is in talking to the representatives right now, and then all of our teachers will go through with these representatives. They'll get to meet some parents, they'll interview some students, and then our board of directors will be in tomorrow. And again, we expect authorization really soon, so stay tuned to that. Now, continuing our education series, last video you heard from Mr. Herring share a little bit about the program as a whole, and now I'd like to introduce you to our English teacher, Mr. Anthony Wyatt.
The design for this class is centered around three key topics. Intertextuality, how texts communicate with each other throughout cultures, throughout time, throughout genres, throughout media. Secondly, readers, writers, and texts. How do individual members of the community of the world create these texts, interact with these texts, respond to these texts? What does a student have to say? What does the author have to say? And why does that matter? And then thirdly, time and space. How a text written in one time period can be reinterpreted in another time period. How something can speak to multiple time periods at the same time, to the future, to the past, and why that matters here and now, especially when thinking about contemporary texts and the message they have for the future. Another key component of IB language and literature is the language side. In the digital modern world in which we live in, English does not confine itself to the written word on a page. There's so much more that happens in the world around us, whether it's in movies, whether it's on social media. Maybe it's in a magazine, maybe it's in an advertisement. We see text, we see the English language in so many different formats, and that's what we look at in this class. So IB is very interested in making sure that language and lit is balanced between literary text and non-literary text. Another example is our unit on the 1950s and looking at one specific time period from multiple perspectives, whether that's Saturday Evening Post covers from Norman Rockwell, maybe it's Coca-Cola advertising or Soviet photography trying to instill communist propaganda, and how all these deal with similar topics of idealism prevalent within that society, within that time period after World War II. A couple things to know about the class is that everything we do is grounded in skills. So IB, unlike AP, unlike your traditional honors classroom, is less interested in a bulleted checklist of all the topics you have to know. Instead, here in IB, we want students to grow in certain skill sets, because a student is going to leave this classroom and be involved in many different things. Maybe that's what they do in college, maybe that's what they do in a career, but regardless, no two students are going to have the same experience, and they need to have the skills they need to approach whatever comes their way. Some examples of this are how to do historical research, how to do that properly and make sure you're finding appropriate objective sources. being able to sit with and not be afraid to be challenged by ambiguities, and the fact that a written text or a visual text doesn't have to have just one meaning. It's okay to have a pluralistic approach to that and have multiple voices saying the same things and different things. Another example is knowing how to annotate texts. Having that skill, that specific skill for when a student goes and reads a difficult text, how can they break it down and better understand it? A final one is understanding symbolism and figurative language, right? It's not so much, can that student quote back to me specific examples from that one text, but can they learn the skills that they need to watch a movie on their own 5 years from now, sitting in their home, and say, that's a symbol, and here's what it means to me, and here's what that author is trying to say to me. Here's the message they're trying to convey. So my hope is that students leave this class knowing the skills that they need to go out in the world, go out in the community, go out into their lives, their careers, their further education, and interpret and analyze what they see in front of them. That's the goal.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wyatt. And families, alumni, students, we're going to continue this series of educational videos talking about all things International Baccalaureate and the career program, as well as all the other good things that are happening here at the Castle. So, as always, from one Cavalier to another, together, onward Cavaliers.